Professional golf is currently sitting on top of a massive financial scandal. The headlines promise exposed secret payments and a full investigation demanded by the biggest stars in the world. This is not just another rumor floating around the clubhouse. We are looking at a verified legal nightmare that threatens the entire structure of the sport. Recent federal inquiries uncovered 276 pages of previously hidden documents. These papers detail confidential negotiations between the PGA Tour and the Saudi Public Investment Fund. The real shock is not just that executives were talking behind closed doors. The documents reveal a specific financial mechanism designed to quietly move money around. Officials called it an equalization fund. The primary goal was to compensate loyal players and keep the locker room divided without any public transparency. Hiding these deals from the rest of the player base creates a massive antitrust problem. When the people running the sport use hidden funds to control the athletes, the entire competitive balance is compromised. The stars are no longer just complaining about the rules or the schedule. They are demanding a complete federal probe into every single transaction to ensure the game remains fair. I think the players are right to demand these records, but do you see this as normal business or outright betrayal? Tell me below, and subscribe for more unfiltered golf truth. Leaked papers prove the money existed, yet the exact method used to hide it is even more shocking. The proposed equalization fund was never just a simple bonus pool for the athletes. Front office leaders designed it as a shadow ledger to keep things quiet. Public scrutiny was the real enemy for the management team. They wanted to quietly compensate specific athletes who stayed loyal to the main tour. By routing money through a secret channel, management masked true earnings from the public. Such secrecy kept the actual monetary deals completely out of the public eye. The executives knew that if the regular players saw these special payouts, they would demand the same treatment. So, they built a complex system of off-book accounts to hide the transfers. The money moved through different business accounts in offshore locations. The executives set up fake marketing companies in the Cayman Islands to process the payments. These shell corporations had no actual offices or employees. They only existed on paper to move the cash. The money was disguised as consulting fees for global brand development. This made the transfers look like standard business expenses to casual observers. The leadership believed they had created a perfect system that no one could ever unravel. They thought the secret would remain safe forever. The sheer volume of cash moving through these shadow accounts eventually raised red flags for the internal accounting team. Hiding these payouts creates a massive legal problem, because federal laws strictly forbid this kind of secret control. Federal antitrust laws strictly forbid monopolies from secretly paying participants to suppress open competition. When a governing body uses off-book funds to control its athletes, it destroys the free market. The athletes argue this was a deliberate strategy to crush any rival organizations. A calculated move to maintain total control over professional golf was the true intention behind the fund. Current lawsuits claim the leadership intentionally bypassed standard financial reporting to keep the rest of the field in the dark. The lawyers representing the players argue that this is a clear violation of federal commerce laws. If a monopoly uses secret money to keep its workers from joining a competitor, it is illegal. The Department of Justice has already started looking into these specific financial channels. Federal agents are currently interviewing former tour executives who were involved in the early negotiations. The potential penalties for this kind of antitrust violation are incredibly severe. The tour could face billions of dollars in fines if the courts rule against them. The leadership is now scrambling to find a legal defense for these hidden accounts. They are claiming these were just marketing consulting fees, but the federal investigators are not buying that excuse. The prosecutors have already subpoenaed the personal financial records of the top executives. Current lawsuits claim the leadership intentionally bypassed standard reporting, but the real damage was happening inside the locker room. Silence in the locker room was the initial result of this accounting trick. Tour officials thought they had solved their retention issue without anyone noticing the covert transfers. The players who received the money stayed quiet, just as they were instructed. The rest of the field assumed that everyone was being paid the exact same base rate. This false sense of equality kept the peace for a long time. The management team patted themselves on the back for a job well done. They believed they had successfully navigated a massive crisis without any public backlash. But secrets in professional sports rarely stay buried for very long. The sheer volume of money moving through these shadow accounts eventually raised red flags. Independent auditors started asking questions about missing funds and unexplained corporate expenses. The management team tried to shut down the inquiries, but the pressure kept building. A mid-level accountant noticed a massive discrepancy in the quarterly earnings report. This worker sent an anonymous tip directly to the federal investigators. The tip included specific bank routing numbers and corporate names. This single action broke the entire secret network wide open. The management team tried to fire the accountant, but the federal subpoena arrived the very next morning. The truth was slowly bubbling to the surface, and the locker room was about to explode. Official investigators are now digging into exactly who received these undisclosed payouts, and the first names will surprise you. The exact veterans targeted by this shadow ledger were the ones who refused to jump to the rival league. Management needed a face for their loyalty program to make it look legitimate. They needed players who would publicly defend the main tour while secretly collecting extra cash. The Player Advisory Council became the primary vehicle for this hidden compensation. These specific veterans were the ones who stayed behind when the mass exodus happened. They were the voices of reason during the initial panic. The front office relied on them to calm down the younger players and keep the tour running. Because they were so vocal in their support, they became the perfect candidates for the secret fund. The executives wanted to reward their public loyalty without making it an official tour policy. If it was an official policy, everyone would get the money. By keeping it secret, they only had to pay the specific people they wanted to control. These specific veterans were the ones who stayed behind, making them the perfect targets for a secret loyalty program. Front office executives pulled these council members into private, closed-door meetings at luxury hotels. They presented them with complex equity structures and bonus pools that looked very confusing. These structures were designed to look like standard performance incentives on paper. In reality, they were covert retention tools meant to buy their silence. The veterans were told these extra funds were a direct reward for their public support and loyalty. They were explicitly asked to keep the exact financial details completely confidential from the rest of the field. The executives used strict, non-disclosure agreements to legally bind the players. They threatened to pull the money if any of the details leaked to the press. The veterans signed the papers because they believed they were just getting a fair bonus for their hard work. They did not realize they were being turned into secret assets for the front office. The money was deposited into their accounts quietly over the next few months. Management explicitly asked the veterans to keep these financial details completely confidential until the Senate documents suddenly leaked. When the Senate documents leaked, the truth about these private meetings came out into the open. The veterans quickly realized their extra compensation was not a simple reward for hard work. It was a calculated tool used by the front office to manipulate public opinion and control the narrative. The players who stayed loyal were suddenly facing intense scrutiny from their peers. Other athletes in the locker room began to question if their teammates were compromised by secret money. The veterans tried to explain that they were just being paid for their performance, but no one believed them. The trust inside the Player Advisory Council completely shattered overnight. The players who took the money were isolated by the rest of the field. The younger players demanded to see the official contracts of the council members. They refused to tee it up against players who might be getting secret advantages. The veterans had to hand over their personal bank statements to prove they were not taking illegal bribes. This public humiliation completely destroyed the unity of the player group. The younger stars formed their own private group chat to discuss the scandal. They started planning a formal boycott of the next major tournament if the front office did not provide full financial records. The front office refused to issue any public statements to defend their loyal veterans. This left the veterans to face the media and their peers all by themselves. They realized too late that they had been used as pawns in a much larger game. Other athletes began to question if their teammates were compromised, but the veterans were not the only ones targeted. The biggest names in the sport were also caught in these secret backroom deals. The leaked documents revealed a shocking proposal involving Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. Executives planned to offer these global superstars actual ownership stakes in the rival league. The goal was to secure their participation and legitimize the merger in the eyes of the public. This proposal was kept entirely secret from the rest of the player base. Management hoped that bringing these two icons into the fold would silence any criticism. They believed that having Woods and McIlroy as part owners would make the rival league look like a permanent fixture in the golf world. The plan was to use their massive global appeal to cover up the financial instability of the new venture. The executives thought the superstars would jump at the chance to become owners. They prepared massive financial packages designed to make the offer impossible to refuse. The executives also planned to use these ownership stakes to control the broadcast rights. If the biggest stars owned part of the rival league, The major television networks would face a massive conflict of interest. The TV deals would collapse, and the rival league would lose its main source of public visibility. The front office thought they could force the networks to accept this new reality. They believed the money would blind the television executives to the legal risks. Executives planned to offer these global superstars actual ownership stakes, hoping to legitimize the merger in the eyes of the public. Front office leaders hoped to use their massive global appeal to cover up the financial instability, but the superstars saw right through it. Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy reviewed the proposals and immediately spotted the flaws. They understood that accepting these hidden stakes would compromise their integrity and alienate their fans. More importantly, they realized that the financial foundation of the rival league was incredibly weak. The secret documents showed that the league was losing millions of dollars every single month. By rejecting the deal, they completely fractured the trust between the tour leadership and its biggest global assets. The front office was furious after having millions invested in this secret proposal thrown right back in their faces. The rejection meant that the merger plan was falling apart completely. The leadership had to find a new way to force the deal through without their biggest stars. Tour leadership was furious after having millions invested in this secret proposal thrown right back in their faces. Desperate leaders decided to use the remaining secret funds to buy off the opposition, right as the money started drying up. The financial backing for the rival league is now facing a massive crisis. Reports confirm that the Saudi Public Investment Fund plans to stop its financial support after the current season. This sudden pullback of billions of dollars has triggered a new wave of legal action. Players who joined the rival league are now suing for unpaid invoices and broken financial promises. The athletes who took the guaranteed money are suddenly finding out that the guarantees were not real. The funding cuts mean that their massive contracts are now in serious jeopardy. This has created a chaotic environment where players are fighting just to get their basic paychecks. The lower-tier players in the rival league are suffering the most from these funding cuts. Caddies are not getting paid for their travel and hotel expenses. The teams have slashed their daily food budgets and downgraded their practice facilities. Players are sharing rental cars and splitting cheap motel rooms just to save money. Some athletes are even taking out personal loans just to cover their basic living costs. The dream of a wealthy, secure alternative league has turned into a financial nightmare for many of the athletes involved. They are now begging the main tour to let them come back and play, but the tour has strict rules against returning players. Rival league dreams turned into a financial nightmare, prompting the players to take extreme legal action. The federal discovery process is going to change the sport forever. When the government forces the release of all internal documents, the true cost of these secret deals will be exposed. We will see exactly how much money was wasted on covert operations. We will see the exact emails where executives plotted to manipulate the athletes. The potential fines for these antitrust violations could be astronomical. The tour might be forced to completely restructure its player equity model. The governing bodies will no longer be able to operate in the shadows. Every single financial decision will now be under a strict federal microscope. The era of secret payments and hidden agendas is officially over. The new rules will require an independent financial oversight committee to approve all major contracts. The player directors will be removed from the main policy board to prevent conflicts of interest. The revenue split between the tour and the athletes will be legally mandated at a fixed percentage. No executive will be able to change these numbers without federal approval. The players have successfully dragged the entire financial structure of the sport into the light. The governance of professional golf is no longer in the hands of a few executives making deals in private rooms. Every single financial decision will now be under a strict federal microscope, ending the era of secret payments forever. The stars forced this investigation, and the final verdict will permanently alter how professional golf is governed. You cannot run a multi-billion-dollar sports monopoly in the dark and expect the athletes to just smile and nod. The 276 pages of leaked documents are just the beginning of a massive cleanup. The players have drawn a line in the sand, and the governing bodies have no choice but to step back. The future of the sport will be built on total financial transparency, whether the front office likes it or not. The athletes have taken back control of their own careers and their own finances. The secret era is dead, and the new era of accountability has begun. The fans and the players will finally see exactly where every single dollar is going. This is the biggest shift in the history of professional golf, and it is happening right now. If this breakdown gave you the facts you came for, Hit subscribe so you never miss a story, and drop a comment with your final verdict.